If you've planted a garden and you have summer squash growing in your garden, you know full well how overwhelming it can be to try to figure out what to do with all of the squash that your garden produces. I love squash because it grows so well and it's abundant, but to be really honest, I'm not that crazy about the flavor. It's pretty bland and it's not exactly my thing. So through the years, I've tried to figure out different ways to use the squash. I had one year where I used zucchini to make pies, and the children thought it was actually apples. I've made preserves. I've done all sorts of things with squash, but this year I want to try something a little bit different. I am going to experiment today with you, and we'll see how it turns out. So you're coming along for the ride. I'm going to try to make some, well, maybe like a hummus type dip. So stick around. I'm going to get started peeling and chopping up these beautiful yellow squash, and then we'll roast them in the oven as the first step. For the first step, I'm going to cut the squash into probably, I don't know, bite-sized chunks, but I'll put the camera down and show you. I want to make sure that we can peel it comfortably. I am definitely not a professional chef, so do not take my knife technique as law. So in an attempt to get some of the liquid off of the squash, I had the idea to salt it and let it sit in a strainer to see if some of the juices would come off. I only got a little tiny bit off, so I went ahead and rinsed the squash, but actually it has a really nice salty flavor now. So I think what I'm going to do is not add any additional salt to my recipe. I'm just going to go ahead and add the garlic and cumin. I'm going to put a pretty big chunk of garlic, a couple of them actually, because I want it to have a nice garlicky flavor. But if you don't like garlic, you wouldn't have to do quite as much. And then I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle cumin, which is one of my favorite flavors. I'm not really sure that it's a proper hummus flavor, but I love it, so it's going in. And then I'm going to toss all of this with some oil. I actually used up all of my olive oil yesterday, so I'm just using canola oil. Hopefully the flavor is okay. And then I'm going to toss this. Just kind of mix it around, maybe add a little bit more cumin. And then I'm going to pop it into a pan and roast it in the oven. I've got the oven set on 400 degrees. You could probably do it at a lower temperature, but I'm kind of impatient. So I will roast it a little bit higher and maybe a little shorter time period. I think I'm going to leave it in for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then we'll come back and do the next step. I let the squash roast for about 40 to 45 minutes. I did actually turn the broiler on because I didn't feel like they were getting browned enough. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put some of the squash into the food processor and blend it together with some tahini and some lemon juice. So I may add some garlic powder to it. I don't know. It smells pretty garlicky, which I love, but it might be a little over the top. The kids came home and said the house smelled like garlic, so I think I might have enough. I don't know. I'm going to taste it and see. So at this point, I'm going to turn the video down so you can see what I'm doing, and you'll get to hear a whole lot of food processing noise. I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. I don't want to overwhelm the food processor. And I'm not really measuring anything. I tend to not measure much, which makes it fun. Add a little bit of lemon juice. It popped like a champagne cork. And then I'm just going to pulse it, maybe, after I plug it in. Okay, let's try this now. To save your ears, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and just continue to pulse it, and I'll come back and show you the finished product, and I'll tell you what I've done to maybe make it taste a little better, if it's not perfect already. It didn't take very long at all to puree all of the squash. I think the texture turned out really great, and the flavor is awesome. The only thing that I would probably do different next time is not salt the squash prior to roasting. Honestly, it didn't take much of the liquid off. The roasting process did that for me. And although I like salt, it might be a little bit salty for some people. So I think next time I'll just add salt to taste. It made quite a bit. This is only a portion of it. So I'll probably pressure can some of it. Maybe if it lasts that long. My kids really love hummus. And that's really what this tastes like to me is hummus. It's delicious, and I'm excited because I think this is a great way to use up that abundance of all the squash that we're going to get this summer. And it's a nice change from making, you know, roasted squash or relish or squash apple pie or all the other ways that I've thought to use up our squash. So I hope you'll like it as much as I do, and I'll be sure and put the recipe at the end so you can get an idea of what I did if you want to do that for yourself. Thanks for coming along for the experience, and I'm loving it. Oh, don't forget to subscribe.